I kind of wanted to talk about an aspect that I didn't explain as much on the website, and
Mhm.
that has to do with like involving the community and like members of the featured culture. So my concept was that I kind of mentioned it here, but whenever it changes to the new culture, I would work with like the community, the local community from that culture, and reach out to ethnic grocery stores and local
Mhm.
restaurants, and um, kind of like hire on, for example, there's a local South Indian restaurant called Am's restaurant, and it's South Indian food. So the idea is that I would kind of like have them cater for like making their food and their food for the event for the however many months that this um, that culture is put on. So um, it's making sure, because I don't want it to be like my voice that I'm trying to go through this restaurant. I want it to be like the community's voice and that the people from that culture's voice. So it would
Mhm.
showcasing their actual recipes and food, as well as providing them like platform and advertising, and like people will see that they're like sponsoring or catering events and want to learn about their that restaurant more. And I was thinking that local grocery stores could provide a lot of the ingredients for the marketplace, and in exchange of that, basically they would sponsor the event and advertising and outreach, learn about their store, as well as it's good for me because I'm getting the ingredients as well.
Yeah.
So that was
Oh,
one.
yeah. I love that picture right there. It gives it a sense of like warmth, space, and kind of the colors of the different culture. Like I would, if you can create a few more of those rooms like that. The imagery you have there is very very interesting. Like create these rooms too.
Yeah, the color was like an important part of it. Um,
Yeah.
in the mood boards, like I have
Mhm.
color palettes that, like the Grease one is like a lot of blues and kind of cream,
Mhm.
as well as
Right.
red, and then the Indian one is like greens, reds, and like this mustard color. Um, so the color definitely like changes the mood and the
Mhm.
impact as well.
Yeah, it really. Have you ever done any research on menus? Like the history of menus and what they look like, and designing them even. It kind of reminds me of that because you have a wonderful color sense with this, that you could almost design many of those conversation cards. That they maybe the menus are now conversation cards. I don't know. So very, yeah, because the color sense is beautiful.
Thank you. Hi,
Yeah,
who's come on just recently. Anyone have any questions?
yeah.
I have a question, Jason.
Yeah.
If you were to do this for like 2 years, what cultures did you identify some that you would definitely do at the beginning?
Right. Well, the ones that I was currently working as like executives, which this project is still a work in progress, so I'm still building them out. But the ones that I kind of had identified were South India and the Shanghai region of China, as well as Italy. I felt like that provided a lot of diversity in like the style of eating, similar, definitely ingredients, as well as overlaps. But going forward, um, my my idea and my concept with this is that at the end, they would kind of fill out like do a reflection event or and inside of that there would be a place where they vote for the next culture. And it would probably be like maybe 4 quizzes. I want it to be like the communities like has a say in what they want to see. So thanks for the question. Any other questions? Okay, I'll talk about.
You've done a great job of.
Oh, were you saying something?
No, I just think you've done such a great job of explaining it, Jason.
Thank you.
I have such an understanding now of the whole piece.
Yeah, and for people who like kind of just hopped on, I'll kind of explain a little bit about what the concept is again. So it's called Four Corners, and it's a restaurant experience with a rotating theme. So the idea is that there are several stages. So it's kind of a restaurant meets pivot, like a restaurant and an exhibit combined together. And as you can see, these are stages of the experience, but along with the physical experience, there's also a digital aspect that kind of augments the experience throughout. So it can be used without without the interface, but the interface does add a lot of information and depth to the experience and ties it together. So I designed it in order to create opportunities for cultural and personal sharing. So my original idea with this is that I wanted to give immigrants an opportunity to share their cultures with their friends and others as well, because in our American culture, there's not as much opportunity for them to talk about where they're from or share their language or their food. So by providing this like very immersive environment and experience, it really allows them to share who they are, share where they come from, and they just have the tools in order for their friends or loved ones to like really understand that aspect of them. But it really can be used for like anyone can go to this, anyone can share that experience with others,
Okay, all right, okay.
and really start talking about who they are, who they come from, in order to create those like deeper bonds and relationships, as well as just feelings of community and feelings of belonging. So that's the idea behind everything. And
Jason, I have to leave right now, but I just wanted to congratulate you so much.
thank you.
I just then please stay in touch. I want to hear more of the continuation of this story, all right?
Certainly, yes.
All right, listen, very best of luck and we'll talk soon, okay?
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. Talk soon.
All right.
Bye. So I like to think of 4 main stages of the experience. So it starts when you arrive, and this is kind of where you're learning like what the event is, what the stages of the events are, and what the culture is, an introduction to the culture that's being featured. So throughout the year, the menu and the decoration and the experience will completely transform to represent a different culture, um, and that's to just give all of the give different cultures like a real platform and a spotlight, and just show like dive into like how unique they are, as well as comparing and contrasting them, because showing the overlaps and similarities. So yeah, and then there's the marketplace experience, where you're sampling and learning about the cultural significance of different ingredients in the culture. You're sharing that experience with friends and chatting about your own personal experience with that item, or um, kind of imagining like how they grew up with a certain ingredient as well. And then moving into the dining room, it's like reflecting. I wanted there to be a contrast between the marketplace and the dining room, in that while the marketplace is like the public setting and that like exciting and like all the sounds and the smells and stuff, the dining room reflects more like a traditional home. So this one reflects more of a traditional South Indian home in the color scheme and the decor. There's a rendering at the bottom that shows a little bit like a larger view of what it might look like, but you're tasting the food, and this is where the conversation cards come in, which I designed in order. There's two aspects to the conversation cards. So there's questions, and there's also cultural facts. Um, so the questions are just breaking it. There's sparks in order for learning about oneself and or the other people's self, and where they grew up, where they come from, as well as like different um, things about food. So, for example, this one example is about where did you live growing up? What was it like there? There's also questions about like what was your favorite food growing up? What food like reminds you of home, or um, just different easy questions, but questions with the potential to start like a conversation and kind of as a jumping off point for a deeper connection there. And then the second aspect is the cultural facts. So when I was speaking to the interview participants, um, and a lot of them were immigrants, they were saying that if they saw something that was like about where they come from, they would be like really interested to elaborate more and just start sharing that way. So that's why I included that, as well as just to provide insight on important things in that culture and a deeper understanding. And then the last part of the experience is even after you go home. So throughout the experience, you're through the app scanning and collecting like the different items, almost like a scavenger hunt. And one part of the experience is like once you choose the dish that you've ordered, you're given a list of ingredients that you have to find and collect to kind of like unlock the recipe card to that dish. And it's optional, because like if you don't, you're still gonna get the food even if you don't do it. But so you're collecting the different ingredient cards, and then you're unlocking the dishes. And I wanted to like through this interface like really provide a way to like show the similarities and difference between the cultures. And I did that through the once you've gone to several different of these cultural experiences throughout the year, for example, it would show like how these cultures are overlapping and how the ingredients are overlapping, as well as showing like, for example, for the coconut one, it could show in Hawaiian culture, this is how they use the ingredient, and this is like the dishes that are it's used in. And then for South India, this is the dishes that it's used in for that one, and their just treatment of the ingredient and perspective on the ingredient. So those are the main stages of the experience. Does anyone have any questions? Not, I can just.
Hi, Jason.
Hi.
Congrats on this project. It's really great as well.
Thank you.
I don't really have any questions, but I just had like a lot of thoughts, and I'll just dump a couple on you right now, and then maybe I'll ask a question later. But my first was just that this is like such a cool concept. I dropped in the chat, which I would like you should check it out later and let me know what you think. But there was a project in Pittsburgh called Conflict Kitchen that was kind of like very different intentions. It was about like raising awareness of like to like the humanity of the communities that the United States was currently at conflict with, and just kind of bringing awareness to those cultures and those people and like humanizing them through food. Mm-hmm. And so it was cool. Something that reminded me of your concept, so you should definitely check it out. And then also I could see this in like a museum setting. I don't know how often museums try to serve food, but the idea that it's like educational and immersive and just like something that would bring people back to a space over and over again, which I think is a big challenge of experiences in general. So I think that's really cool that you made this like kind of a rotating, like I could see how it would adapt to a new culture without like a ton of work, because you have this system that really like makes that easy. So that's super exciting. I want to go, so I hope hope someone picks up on this.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. Yeah, the idea of like a museum, it is like an exhibit at the same time as it is like a real like experience, like a food experience.
Yeah.
I really wanted to incorporate that experience of learning and just gaining insight on the culture, because like restaurants, while you are kind of able to experience a culture, it's like can be a very shallow experience, and like yeah, you're only appreciating one aspect of that culture, and maybe you are appreciating it a lot because you like the food, but you don't always learn more about how it fits into that culture, the significance, and experiencing it fully. So
yeah.
I want
this kind of makes it like a 3-dimensional experience where you're like, you know, you're getting into all different pieces of the culture without necessarily traveling, which isn't accessible to everyone. So it's a really cool concept. Also, like, this is so cheesy, but like Epcot at Disney or something like that, like that's so cheesy, but also I know you're a California boy, so you might appreciate it more than others, but like that could be a perfect place for it as well.
Oh yeah, that was a big inspiration as well for it. But yeah, while I was developing this concept, I was looking at a lot of different similar experiences and events and restaurants and amusement parks and stuff, and I was trying to figure out like, okay, they have aspects of this, but like what don't they have, and like what can I bring to the table? And that came in the form of like really sparking these conversations and this dialogue of personal and cultural sharing, as well as having that aspect of like the including like the natives in the community and hiring like people from that culture so that they're not only preparing the food and like making sure things are like real and authentic, but they're there to have conversations as well. And like you can talk to your server and you can talk to the people in the marketplace and say like, oh, what was this like? And like, what's your perspective on it? So
Yeah, super well done. Congrats.
thank you. Thank you so much. I just realized all these chats were in here. Let me just take a look. Conflict Kitchen. Should really, I'll look into that. Yeah, and it's also I wanted it to like be there's like varying amounts of like it's kind of catered to whoever wants to go there. So if you're going there and you just want to like have a fun time and just like be with friends and not really get super in depth with it, you can like share the experience that way and bond in that way through just like shared experiences. But if you're going and you also want to like have a really deep and meaningful experience, you can have that as well. So there's like varying levels of things that you can draw out of the experience.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do the conversation card decks change with the culture, or is it like one deck?
Yeah, good question. So I'll share my screen again. So the answer is there's going to be cards that are carried throughout all the cultures. So those are like the question cards, for example, this one and this one. So those can be applied to any culture. And there's also going to be like a rotating deck that's specific to each culture. And that will include the cultural facts, for example, this one, as well as questions that are maybe more specific to that culture, or maybe about the foods that are present in that culture, and starting conversations about people's experience with them. So yeah, and how I've laid it out on here is like you can scroll through the different decks. The suggested deck would be like a combination of the questions and the facts in a randomized order that while you're at the event, you can like with your friends go through the random questions and also pop up cultural facts sometimes and look at that together. And you can even like click on the card and maybe watch a little video or find out more information about it. So this one is about South Indian classical dance forms. So it would, when you click it, it would kind of turn over and pop up almost like this screen. But instead it would have different videos on all the different dance forms that you could experience together. And then each culture would have their own deck. Thanks for that question.
Cool. Sorry, I missed that part of your presentation.
Yeah, I didn't talk about it yet, so.
Ooh.
And I was talking about this a little earlier. I don't know who was present, but not only can this be like in the app, but I wanted to have like a print version as well. And so you're having these like little different decks, and maybe each time you go to the event after it's changed cultures, you can get a different culture's deck and collect them and mix them all together and have these conversations with your friends outside the experience as well, or with your family, or with new people that you meet somewhere. Yeah, I'll show you guys the space renders right now. So this is the marketplace experience. And there's all there's fruits, vegetables, and spices. So it's gonna be like 3 to 5 of each of the most integral or like most characteristic ones from that culture. And this is an example of one of the signs there, the marketplace signs. So you're learning about the cuisinal significance as well as cultural significance, and how it just like affects the culture, seeing how it's cultivated in that place and as well as how it's served there. And then this graphic can be scanned through image recognition on the application. And so once you scan that, this little card will pop up on your screen, which you can then add to your marketplace collection, like this. So when you click this, it'll go down into this little icon here, and you can reference that for later in here. Yeah, so going around the marketplace and doing the little scavenger hunt as well. And I don't know who was present at what times, but this is the dining room experience, and it's designed in collaboration with representatives of the customer. Oh, Gordon, you're yawning and stuff. All good. But it's designed to reflect like homes or living rooms from that culture. So the decor and the feeling of it for this one is reflecting a South Indian home and like South Indian events and stuff like this. And the garland is like present in a lot of like weddings and events in South Indian culture. So I wanted to incorporate that. Yeah, does anyone have just want to like talk or ask questions?
Well, I'm gonna say goodbye because I have to go. But congratulations and good luck on everything. And I also could see this at events that companies, when they do events for their employees, kind of bringing employees together for things. I feel like this could be a great thing that would, I guess, work with catering wherever the location is.
Right.
And then it could be a good way for people to network and meet each other within the company too, because I know they like to do kind of like icebreaker type things. So that's another concept where this could go, although it wouldn't be as intimate because it would be a large scale company, but I don't know. It just seems like this would be something that would be great, that could travel when companies were thinking of, I mean, whatever type of catering, convention center type place. So good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing. It was awesome. Thanks for being our great model for stay in touch.
Yeah, stay in touch.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jason,
Mike, how are you?
I'm good. I'm lost in the ether here somewhere.
Yeah, you certainly are. Is that?
I'm trying to get a hang of like what rooms there's multiple things going on at the same time. So
I know.
anyhow, I apologize. I missed your presentation.
It's okay. I've kind of just been talking for the last 40 minutes, so it's more of a conversation.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed having you as part of the program, and I couldn't imagine you not being there.
Oh,
And I was really impressed at how you embraced everything that Drexel could throw at you, and and I'm gonna miss you a lot.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, miss.
Are you have plans, or what's happening next after
No,
graduation?
yet I don't have plans.
You
But
staying in Philly, or where are you at now?
I'm looking for jobs in California.
What? They're gonna drop in the ocean.
What?
Are you near LA? Where are you near?
Yeah, I'm pretty near LA.
Okay, so I have a cousin who's getting married, so hopefully in September, at some like ranch farm place. You know, I wish I understood the name, remember the name of it. But I may be out there. If you're out there, would you
Oh,
be like to have coffee or something?
yeah, let's get coffee or lunch or something.
Okay, sounds good. What are you going to do with your project?
What am I gonna do with my project?
Are you planning on doing something with it, or you happy it's done and now you're moving on to the next thing?
I would like to hold the event for real.
Yeah.
Well, it's difficult because it's it it's difficult to just be a one-time thing. It because of all the resources that go into it and like all the like outsourcing of the different cultural aspects, it really does need to be like, something almost pretty
Like a business.
yeah.
Yeah, this is what Carl sort of suffered with this too, right? Do you remember Carl's like
um, I,
eating experience?
I don't remember Carlos.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, where he created sort of just a new sort of dining experience and had thought of some really interesting things, but to actually materialize it was going to be really difficult.
Yeah, it the way I designed it, it's it's meant to work with the community, and kind of my concept was getting sponsors or like stores, like ethnic stores from the community, in order to not only provide them a platform and a marketing and like advertising, but also then to provide me with the resources that I need
Yeah.
in terms of the core and like having the food prepared by like different restaurants and stuff. So it's definitely a community
Yeah.
building project.
Yeah, no, I love that thought, and really enjoyed your work throughout everything that you did. But I wouldn't give up on it because, like right now, yeah, the world's blowing up and nobody's thinking about that kind of stuff right now. But I bet as things settle down and progress, and hopefully we think of a better way to treat each other. Restaurants are going to be looking for really creative solutions. Event planners are going to be looking for really creative things. I think a lot of it's going to have to be, if you could adjust your solution to being outdoor, or a way of thinking about having people feel safe, that they're not catching COVID. Like, I think with a little adapting, it might be viable, and people are going to be craving stuff new and experiential.
Yeah, definitely. How would I take this further? How would I bring this to people and get people on board?
Well, I would tell you to stand out by the Hollywood sign, but that probably wasn't going to work. um, this is a tough question because I'm not as integrated into that community of restaurants. I do have a few chef friends, and I could certainly put you in touch with them. One of which was a really high-end chef at 11 Madison Park, which was probably the most expensive restaurant I've ever eaten at. But almost every single industry has a trade magazine, has a community of some sort. And I think if you get integrated with that, you certainly made great connections with Drexel's. What is it? The
Arts department?
Say that again.
Culinary arts.
The culinary arts, like, and I know you left a good impression there, right? So, like, reach out to them. Again, I'm most of my New York, most of my chef friends and all that stuff is a New York scene. So you'll just have to come back to New York, I guess.
Yeah.
But put something together, and I'm happy to talk to you.
Okay.
You know, and see who I know, and how to get you. But I would start looking at like trade organizations. Do you get the fancy food? I think that goes to San Francisco. I mean, who do you think you would be selling it to? Like who, if you were putting it out there, who would you like to get it?
Someone that values culture and values like not just to make money, but to like provide insight and an experience and like connection. I don't know what
Is it around food or is it more around community? I may be a little confused if it's if I'm not quite on point, like correct me.
It's definitely around food, but food is more of the gateway into sharing and into learning and into like learning about the culture. So food is kind of like what gets people in the door and definitely steers the entire experience and is like present throughout, but it's more than just food.
Yeah.
Can I share a thought along this conversation?
Yes, please.
I think that there could be some really cool opportunities for like a scaled version of this to be like incredibly relevant right now with COVID and the realities that our world is experiencing. This is like maybe lame, but as like a subscription box type experience where you would say like I want this box, and it could be like a mystery culture. You could get a box full of ingredients, and you, Jason, like as the company, could still do that collaboration with a local like immigrant community wherever you're based from. You could still source all your ingredients from like a local restaurant, and maybe it's like a pickup service, so you can't like ship it across the country, but you can have people come and pick up their subscription boxes, and then it's not only like introducing you to the ingredients, it's introducing you to that business, and then maybe like you're able to cook those recipes with cards written by those community members, and maybe they include like little stories and anecdotes about their culture that can be informed by the people that you meet, that are helping you like create this authentic experience. I just think that I think you've blown it out to like a really impressive scale with the app and the physical build out and everything, but I think you could carry through a lot of like the integrity of like the community building and the culture sharing and just like the culinary experience in like a scaled down version.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's brilliant. I think you just found your CEO.
No, you're the CEO. I'll just be your like hype woman in the background.
But no, it is a brilliant idea, and I know you as a person who's traveled a lot understands that Americans have sort of a very narrow view of culture, and that when you do experience these other cultures, you do also find ways to connect and appreciate that culture, which again is something we're sort of lacking right now.
Yes.
You know,
especially now that we can't travel and we're still scared to go to restaurants, even if they are reopening in your state. Like it's not something people are jumping at. So
yeah.
So sort of like, I don't know, we're all home chefing it more than we usually are. So it could be a good opportunity for this kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and if you're not going to be CEO, then you should get at least a 10% cut.
Actually
All right, now that I've stirred the pot there, Jason, hey, I'm going to miss you a lot. I can't tell you enough how much I've enjoyed having you part of the program and missing all you guys in the studio. And so don't be a stranger, and don't be shocked if I try to look you up when I come to LA, hopefully in September.
Cool. Sounds great.
Okay.
It's been great. It's been a pleasure.
Be safe.
You too as well. See you, Mike.
Bye.
Ali, did you say you were gonna leave?
I was just gonna say I'm gonna hop off because I'm supposed to be helping make dinner, but congrats, and this is a really cool project. And do you ever want to bounce ideas off of anyone? Not about this, other stuff too. Just let me know. You know where to find me.
Yeah, let's catch up soon as well.
Yeah, it's great to reconnect. Be well. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, gang.
Great job,
Hey,
Jason.
gang.
Amazing.
Go, Jason. Go, Jason.
Your idea is brilliant, and I'm so happy. You worked so hard as well on this whole project, and I think it's absolutely great. And I loved your speech. I loved your presentation.
It was so good.
It's very good.
It's so cute watching your parents. Your dad like yawning, laying down, trying to like charge his phone. I'm like cracking up. I love them. But this was so awesome. And obviously, you know that so many of the people that came here to listen to you were like, this is not the same without you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you killed it.
Yes, congratulations. And this idea is like even more relevant now than it like has ever been.
Yeah, and if you want a partner, I will definitely help you.
Partner.
I know when that which also Allie had so many great, like, she was awesome. I loved hearing her talk, but
Yeah,
I love her.
yeah, she was so cool.
really great ideas.
I know her from, okay, when I was a junior in high school, I went to this industrial design summer camp at University of Cincinnati. And I found out about it through like a friend, like this guy who was on my water.
Jason, do you want to keep recording or no?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll pause.
Okay, I didn't know.
So, talking about the design, I wanted it to be something that caused visual interest and just sparked a curiosity in that culture. I was playing with a few different concepts for like what the cards could look like should it just be a simple map and just be like really easily understandable, or should it be like different images that are inspiring like conversations in that way or interest in that way. But I landed on this more graphical design, which has like different landmarks or features of that culture present. And it just seems really exciting and got people like interested in what that culture is. And from there, I kind of use that as like the inspiration and springboard for all the screens, and went with this like card idea. So it's not only the conversation cards, but like you're like collecting these little ingredient cards and the culture cards and the dishes. So that was my inspiration for the interface. Anyone have any?
Jason, this is so cool.
Wait, who's talking?
This is Gemma.
Oh, hello. Hi, Gemma.
Hey. This is really neat and super cool. I see you have South India there. I wanted to ask, it seemed like when I was looking at the cards that culture was a little bit more nation oriented.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on getting like very particular on cultures within nations? Like Southern American food is super different than Western American fusion food.
Definitely. Yes, good question. So I did want to be more specific on, dialing in on what smaller cultures are within these countries. So when I was working with immigrants from India, I asked them like, okay, what's like, I understand that it's not just India. So like, what is subcultures within India? And that's how I came up with like the South India concept. So that one is a lot more of a focus, like a regional and like regional culture specific. as well as like, you know, China and even Italy are broken up into subcultures. So it would be fun to explore like what cultures within a country there are as well.
Have you heard of the Conflict Kitchen? I don't know if it's still a thing in Pittsburgh, but this reminds me a lot of that. And there's so much opportunity here for fostering conversations about places that in our Western culture are often one-dimensionalized.
Yes, yes, definitely. Someone actually earlier in the last session brought up Conflict Kitchen. So I'll definitely be looking into
Oh,
that.
get out. Yeah, it's super cool.
Thank you. And the idea is, yeah, starting these conversations, starting this dialogue of sharing and where you came from and what influenced how you are today, and you know what your like framework of mind is and how you think, your beliefs and stuff. So
Jason, can I ask what kind of an age range this is targeted at?
right. So it's targeted currently at a younger age range. So from like um, younger adults to like mid-aged adults, I suppose. So when I was designing this, I was definitely thinking like, you know, college age kids or young adults who maybe immigrated when they were younger, or maybe they were even second generation, and they already have that. They already understand the language because it's a. I wanted to focus on the culture aspect instead of like the language learning aspect. So it kind of already assumes that you have a basic understanding of English, which, you know, maybe is good, maybe is bad. But that's the targeted age range.
So one of the things, you'll forgive me if I've said this to you 1,000 times before over the years, because I know this is like my standard design thing. You know, culture is largely based around people, and I don't see any people here. Like there's no human, there's not even a hand holding a coconut. Like, not that you need to have a whole person on every card or anything, but there's like, I like to see some kind, for example, like, so my son is 10 and we've both been doing Duolingo like recently, which is a pretty successful, I think, example of an educational, you know, tool. And one of the things that he really connects with is like Duo as a character, you know, not so much that it has to be a human person necessarily. I guess just some kind of place that we can sort of rest our emotions as we experience this, if that makes sense.
Right.
And could maybe enhance it a little bit, or just maybe it doesn't have to be part of the usual experience of the app, but just maybe it's more in how you're taught to navigate it or something like that. But it was just like it's my automatic thought when I see something that's about humans or culture and there are no humans. I'm always like, where's the humans though?
Definitely, that's definitely a really good point. Yeah, I'll have to play with that as well. Thank you for bringing that up. Does anyone have any questions or conversations that they want to have? Yeah, so I guess I'll go through the experience a little bit. I'll go to the top of the page. Okay, so there's 4 major parts of the physical experience, and those are checking into the event and the marketplace experience, and then moving into the dining room and the actual eating experience, and then bringing that with you at home as well through the interface. So when you're checking in, you're learning about what the experience is ahead of you, as well as learning introduction into the culture that is being featured. So the idea behind the experience is that it's representing one culture, and then throughout the year, the entire menu and the entire interior and the experience transform to represent a different culture. And that's in order to give different immigrants or people from different places an opportunity to share who they are and bring their friends and show them this is where I come from, this is like what I grew up eating, and share that experience with them. And there's also like with the mobile application, there's like a scavenger hunt aspect to it. So when you check in, you're also choosing your entree that you're going to eat later. And you're given a little scavenger hunt sheet of the ingredients that make up that dish. So as you're going through the marketplace, you're finding those ingredients, scanning them, learning more about them through signage, as well as if you want more information through the application. And you're going around taste testing, talking with your friends about them, sharing your previous experiences with them, hearing their experiences, and you're hearing the sounds of the marketplace and smelling the spices and just really getting an immersive experience in that way. And then after that, when you collect all the ingredients from the scavenger sheet, you would unlock, I don't have a screen of it on this. Okay, you would unlock the recipe card. And so, I mean, I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself here, but you would be able to then cook that recipe at home and also learn more about it. But you're going, then after the marketplace room, you're going into the dining room. And this is designed to represent more of the traditional home or traditional living room or the private space of that culture, while the marketplace represents like the public space or the more, public space. So this is designed to represent and really bring kind of a feeling of nostalgia, or that you're, if you come from that place, a feeling of nostalgia. If you're not from that place, a greater understanding of what home feels like for other people. And so this is where you'd eat the food that you've ordered, and where the conversation cards come in. So there's questions about food, so personal, like what you ate growing up. There's questions about just where you grew up, what it's like there, as well as these cultural fact cards. And so those are designed to create conversations around cultural and personal sharing. And as you guys, if you look through the web's page, saw a little bit about my research and inspiration, I found that the biggest way to combat these cultural differences and cultural barriers and culture shock is through personal sharing and just learning about where other people are from. And that's just the best way to like really connect to others, because you can understand what they're thinking and where the framework that they've come from is. And then even after the experience is over, I wanted to bring that along home with you and allow you to reflect on what you experienced. I haven't built out that reflection process yet, because this is still a work in progress, to be honest. But there's like kind of not only a survey so that the event holders, myself, can get an idea of what's working, how to improve the experience, but give them an opportunity to think about what they've experienced and what they liked, what they didn't like, what they learned, as well as voting on the next culture to be featured. So they would be given like maybe 4 options of the next culture and vote to give the community a voice as well. And I mean, does anyone have any questions? Because I don't want to go on talking forever.
I have a question.
Please.
You know, when I go to restaurants and Asian fusion, vegan, or any Italian food, I always want to know a little more about the cuisine, where it is, how it is developed, and I like this concept that you have. And would I, if say I like, for example, mushy vegetable, okay, and I want to know exactly in Chinese food, there's a typical taste, how they bring it about, you know, can I visually see how they cook the dish so that, would that be possible? And how like, for example, scallion pancake, would I be able to see like in this restaurant, I like this, how do they make this? In this salad, how do they get this flavor? Yeah. Would I be able to, with this technology, sort of visualize everything and see the kitchen, see the recipe, how it's made, why it tastes like this? You know, Indian spices have a certain way of cooking and tasting. Chinese is different. And when in the cafeteria, when they have these, you know, Caribbean night or Chinese night or something, it's a very superficial way of, but this will go into depth. So would your user interface do that?
Wow, that's really insightful. Yeah, I currently didn't have like there's nothing in the experience that's about the cooking process or like seeing how they cook it or the kitchen. That's definitely something really interesting to consider though. I did have, once you've gone through the scavenger hunt of the marketplace and you've collected the ingredients, you do unlock a recipe card. So with that, you would be able to follow along how it's made at home and maybe try to and try to recreate it yourself. And with that, it could combine videos, it can combine like explanation of the different techniques that are used in that culture. And I think that would be really, that would provide like even another, sorry, there's something going on outside, but
Why don't you go check that, Jason? Go check it. Yikes.
Magic of Zoom.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Do you know if Jason's in Philly?
Yeah, he's in Philly now, in his house.
I have.
Is everyone here a Drexel student or professor?
Yeah, I'm
Hello,
a
Bo
Drexel.
over here. I'm a friend of Raja's.
Mm.
Dear, I hope everything's okay.
not sure about what that was, what was going on.
I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah, I didn't see anything outside.
Okay.
Good.
Just saw some cars or something.
Well, I think you've done a wonderful job, Jason, of describing the experience. I I think that part of the great potential of your project is the potential product families that could grow from it. I think that, as we've talked about, dishes could grow from it. Connections to local grocery stores, connections with local chefs, and experimenting could be great. And I agree. I think I, I I love the way that you describe the market and the sensory experiences in the market. And I think that there's even more in the kitchen. And I wish that there was some way that the kitchen could move into your experience. Although I know that that makes it much more complex. You've got water and heat and stoves and things like that. But I think that that's where the real excitement comes.
I'm wondering if
Like
there
a
might
cooking class?
Yeah, it's interesting that that you guys bring that up. Actually, originally in the experience development and the experience mapping of the concept, I was really considering having like an aspect of it where they're making something simple. They're maybe making like the dumplings or the whatever simple thing that can be made together at the table. But when talking to the culinary department, like one of the professors, and getting his feedback on the flow and just the logistics of everything, it did seem like a very difficult component to add in, especially if it was tableside. Um, the logistics of it were pretty difficult. But if it was like a separate stage of the experience and like there was like a kitchen aspect where they went to and they did something there, that could be a really cool way to add that in. Or even just like a window into seeing the chefs or like seeing them behind, like maybe behind a glass, or maybe just a little counter view into it, could be a cool way to see the cuisine being created in process. So yeah, thank you for those conversation.
Jason, I see that you've created this really wonderful and internally well branded um, application that seems really cohesive, visually cohesive, and the cards and the drawing style and everything. And I really look forward to seeing how you would choose to represent this out in the world. I think that the success of these kinds of apps is highly dependent on your platform and the kind of platform you build out around it. And the sort of like how you had sort of different approaches in the beginning to that you narrowed down, but that if you rebroaden when it comes to a marketing idea, that all three of those approaches are draws for different customers who might then come into your product and really kind of buy in based on they see a beautiful picture of a lagoon, which is the part of the travel magazine that they love, but that brings them into this world you've created. And I think that there's still room for some of those early research places to maybe reemerge as you consider how you would bring this to people.
Right. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Jason, I wanted to commend you on choosing food as as kind of like the central element of the project. Well, actually, first and foremost, great to see how this has progressed since the IDSA competition.
Yeah.
Glad to see it at the end. Great advancements. But I'm really intrigued by food kind of being the center, because culturally, and getting people to understand foreign cultures, it seems like a very low barrier to entry, and it's a very understandable, easily understandable by really everybody. And when I was in high school and in middle school, I went to schools that were 30% white, and food was really what brought me a lot closer to my friends and helped me to understand where they were coming from. So that being said, I think there's a bit of a parallel there on that anecdote and current events. Is it possible that something like this could be used in America just to help? Well, obviously this would be used in America, right? But to help spread understanding in between just different community members, you know, from block to block within the city of Philadelphia.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the whole like idea behind it and like ethos that I'm like that I've been trying to like consider at every step is like, how can I start those conversations? And yeah, you're right that food is kind of the entryway or the gateway into a culture and understanding a culture and understanding that individual. So I tried to use that to inspire deeper connection as well.
I think that it's very timely and something considering bringing to the next level for sure. Especially with everything, all the conversations that we're having now.
Yeah, definitely.
And Jason, I feel like what I'm like, as I'm listening to everyone's feedback, like I hear people saying, can it be made more regional? Can it be made, can we bring it in? Can we like bring it closer to our individual experience, kind of is like what's sort of emerging over and over as I like listen to everyone. And I think that it's very interesting because we think of like, you know, the US is a big country compared to say Europe, where, you know, there's like radically different cuisines between say France and Italy. And here we have the same thing, right? State to state, even like Pennsylvania's food is nothing. I deplore that in New York there are no tasty cakes. Like, you know, it's just there. Jared's laughing at me. But like, it sounds funny, but it's important to me that soft pretzels are only good here. You know, that's part of my identity growing up in Philadelphia. And I think that expanding it to have regional capabilities could really have some amazing promise. And I feel like people, when they see themselves in a product, are just so much more willing to have that conversation and they feel recognized. So I think you've done an amazing job. It's really cool. I'm ready to like sit and have dinner. Let me know when. We'll pick a culture. Like it'll be fun.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean that regional aspect is definitely really important because I think a lot of people, but Americans in specific, have like a very generalizing idea of some other countries, and by kind of taking a magnifying glass into it and showing like, no, it's not just like, it's not just all of China or like all of India or that are the same. It's each local area has its specific subcultures and foods and the geography and the geography plays into that, and the climate, and that influences what ingredients there are, and that influences the cuisine as well. So
I had a question for you, Jason.
Yeah.
First of all, just wanted to say how proud I am of you. I remember going to the urban center and then talking about your idea, and just seeing how far you've come is like really amazing. And I love the app design as well. So I had a question about the app. You talked about how there's an unlock feature as you go through every single like section. I was wondering, so if I was coming in with my friends and I wanted to like start off with the convo cards as I'm like going through each experience, could I do that? Or would I have to wait till I'm at the dining experience and then unlock them?
good question. So you could go to like any of the tabs at the bottom. So once you Here, let me share my screen so I can just show it while I'm talking about it. Okay. So when you arrived, this is like the onboarding experience, and then this screen would pop up, which is like the check-in screen. So once you've clicked check-in, you would already get the conversation card deck.
Okay.
So you could use that throughout by navigating through the bottom panel. The things that you're unlocking are the ingredient cards, and then once you've unlocked enough ingredient cards that match like the scavenger hunt, then you'd unlock the dish card.
Oh, okay, that makes
So
sense.
those things you kind of have to like experience and log, while the conversation cards you would get at the beginning of the experience.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense to have like that unlock feature, so it kind of keeps it mysterious, but also it's fun to have the convo cards like throughout the experience. Thanks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm gonna go head out to see another project, but congratulations, Jason. It's really great. And you know, anytime you do a good job on a project, it unlocks a million more questions, and that's how you know you've done a good job. So keep at it. I really look forward to seeing the next iteration. I think it's gonna be awesome.
Thank you so much. Bye. Hi, Kendall.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Just been talking.
You're gonna be presenting again at 9:40, right? Okay. I'm. I was so confused when I first logged in and didn't know how to get around the thing. So.
No worries. I mean, my presentations are more just me talking and conversing with people, to be honest.
Okay.
So, yeah. Let me read this chat.
Oh, Jason, I'm gonna head out, but
Okay.
really great presentation. I'm so proud of you and can't
Yeah.
wait to meet you soon.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Yeah, the majority, I mean, I didn't really have like a specific presentation per se. I kind of like assumed that people went through the website and then just talked about specific things that I wanted to address or people asked about. So yeah, do you have any questions?
I am looking through right now and I will let you know.
Okay. I mean, I can give a general overview of the concept if you want.
I would love for you to do that.
Okay. Yeah. So Four Corners is an immersive restaurant experience with a rotating culture theme. So it's a restaurant that's combined almost with an exhibit. So it is like a concrete and permanent place, but the inside transforms completely and the menu transforms to represent different cultures throughout the year. And as we were talking about before, it is like I do want to get like pretty dive into like smaller cultures within like larger countries as well, because I think it's really important to not generalize and to really like represent people for like their uniqueness and give them a platform to share who they are without feeling generalized or stereotyped, because that's not the idea behind this. But the idea behind it is to create opportunities for personal and cultural sharing, because I found through my research that the the reason why cultural barriers happen is because people grow up in different environments with different norms and cultural and social like aspects, and that just causes different framework of mind, different framework of knowledge, and just um, beliefs, understandings. So that doesn't always translate across cultures because you might not understand at all like what that cultural aspect someone is talking about. Or if someone says something, you might interpret it completely differently, which causes issues there. Oh, hi. How are you? Did you have a chance to look through the website at all?
Yeah, I did. It was so cool. I loved all of it. I was so excited.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just talking about kind of the idea behind it being to dispel the cultural barriers that exist, you need to understand where that person's coming from and understand why they're thinking the way they are. So that's why I have a lot of aspects that are like using food as the gateway into that culture and sharing and experiences together and questions that are sparking those conversations that can lead to more deeper and profound sharing and connection. And the application kind of just augments that experience, that physical space, and just gives a second layer of information that you're getting, and kind of bringing the small pieces that you're experiencing throughout, kind of just tying them all together and in a hopefully understandable way. Yeah, Kendall, did you see any questions that you were interested in, or Maida, or anyone?
I thought this was really, really cool. I just have I have a couple of things that I wanted to ask that I don't know how relevant they are to like what you're doing, but one of the things that I thought of was like clearly a lot of different ingredients and a lot of different foods have a lot of cultural significance, but there's also cultural significance that comes with eating and having meals. Like certain cultures like do certain things at mealtime, or they, follow certain traditions. So did you have a way of incorporating that, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that part is incorporated in the dining room stage of the experience. And I don't have any screens up of it actually on here, which, and my idea was that the dining style does represent like the traditional eating practices. And on the, when you enter the room and, move from the marketplace stage to the dining stage, there will be screens that are showing you like, this is how it's traditionally eaten, like, for example, like chopsticks or with eating with your hands in Indian culture, or, how the table's set up, or how people typically sit around the table. And through that, you would learn like what the traditional cultural practices are around dining. Hopefully that is
Really cool. I really like that one. I also had one other thing, because I know that, I don't know if this exactly makes sense, but it's something I wanted to ask. I know that different ingredients that may be used, or different things might be sourced at different times. So is there a decision of how like the timeline would work, of how it would switch in between all of the different cultures that we would serve people with? Does that make sense?
If I understand your question, the the cultures are that are present like throughout the year, I was imagining that it would tie into not only the seasons but different like religious or cultural events that happen throughout the year. So, for example, like if it was around like February time or like March, whenever the Lunar New Year is, it could be like an Asian culture and kind of tie in the aspects of Lunar New Year traditions around that, and kind of emulating that visual um, visual communication of like celebration and yeah, throughout the year it could tie in different cultural events that are present at different times. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I love that. That's really cute. So at any given time, there would be like how many like different little events that you could like follow or like places that you could eat from different cultures?
So as it is right now, it's only one restaurant space, and that would represent one featured culture at any given moment. And that is to really keep the focus on that culture and not dilute what the experience is. But there is potential to have this concept in like many different cities. So who knows what like that would look like, but it could potentially um, either each one could be like the same culture throughout all and like keep that consistent platform, or potentially like they could be different depending on what specific ethnic local communities there are in that area,
Mm-hmm.
and tying in like maybe if one area has a lot more like I don't know of whatever culture, it could aim to more represent those cultures that are locally like prevalent. So it could tie in that way.
I love that idea.
Thank you.
So like I know in some places, this is just another question that I don't really know. I'm trying to like ask questions. So I know in some places, like in Chinatown, for example, in Philadelphia, you can go and get like dim sum in Chinatown, and you can kind of experience that culture. So how does this place differ from, one of the more traditional restaurants that are owned by people that are from that culture and, follow a lot of practices that are like that? How does that differ?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the first thing is that I was considering like, because an earlier concept of mine was like more of a traveling pop-up restaurant that would either go to like different cultural centers and set up there, but I wanted this experience to be accessible to people of all cultures. And if it's, for example, in like um, in that ethnic neighborhood, like for example, the dim sum in Chinatown, it can be like limiting to other cultural groups that might not go in that area. So I wanted this to be set up in an area that's accessible to everyone, that would draw people from all different backgrounds so that they can experience something different and something new that they've never experienced before. So that's one major difference. And the other is that this departs from a restaurant in the experience, the more holistic and like immersive experience that it incorporates, and really the learning aspect, because it's diving a little deeper than just the dishes, and it's diving a lot deeper than just the dishes and the food. It's diving into like what makes up those dishes, what ingredients are there, what are the cultural significance of those ingredients. For example, like, does it play a role in religious practices or in daily life, or when would this be eaten at what time of day, how, and why? So it is a lot more in-depth as well as immersive, because as you're going through these environments, it's kind of giving like a little window into what it's like to be there, almost like a little mini, like a traveling without even traveling. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
I had
That's okay. Go for it.
I just had a I guess a question and a comment, which is your thesis and your project, which is like super well done. So excited, so proud. I just want to say that. But it is very interesting in like the climate of like today and like in recent events too, about how people look at like race and culture differently and how it's brought to like, not like this wasn't an issue for the past like hundreds and thousands of years, but of how like you have taken it like an aspect and turn it into like an education. So I was just wondering, like, in light of like now just like the traction it's gotten in like the public eye, not that it wasn't there before, I'm not trying to excuse anything that was there before, but would you change anything, or like how would you mold your project if it would be to fit those or this type of event that's going on right now about like race and culture and trying to be educated about the history of them?
Right. Yeah, that's something really good to bring up and to just talk about, because I mean, the idea behind my thesis and this whole experience is about just understanding others and like, you know, giving minorities like a platform to have their culture appreciated and like understood, and to talk about like where they're from, because people don't based on like all the interviews that I had, like a lot of immigrants don't get a chance to share about like how they grew up or where they're from, or how that influences, like, people don't always like understand them because of that. So I definitely want this to be something that that shines lights on like these minorities, and just something that brings the community together in understanding, because when you don't know a lot about someone else or another culture and you just don't understand why they do the things that they do, it's really easy to judge them or to just like see them as something different. So that's what this experience brings. Yeah.
That's a really good answer. But yeah, I totally agree with also being a minority of how that affects like how it affects conversation with people who don't necessarily know history or like the history of where your culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be like really interesting to tie in the historical aspect as well. I didn't really explore that as much in terms of I use food throughout as like a gateway into the culture, and like food can be surface level sometimes, but there's a lot that comes with it as well, that maybe you don't see, which is what I'm trying to show throughout this experience. But I wonder how history could tie in as well. Hi, Auntie Donna. Yeah, thanks for those really interesting.
I just have a question about like how I know like the last was it this last whole quarter? This last whole quarter was online, and that must have been like super weird or interesting. I know this is not necessarily relating to like your product specifically, but how did you like go through like because our I know product design, at least for me, but I know for like most people, is based on like the studio being there physically, talking with like professors, getting critique in person. So how was it online?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely presented like a lot of challenges because at the end of last term, I was planning to run this experience physically as like a test run or a like a prototype of the experience that I was in discussion with the culinary arts program and trying to see if I can hold it in their restaurant spaces and in their kitchens. Um, but obviously, once the shelter in place and like all the online um, classes started, that idea kind of was impossible. Um, but it definitely gave me an opportunity to focus on other aspects of the project and build out different aspects. For example, the app interface probably would not be nearly as developed as it is because I had a lot more time to like shift the focus on those kind of aspects that I could do. So I was like really grateful for that opportunity. And in terms of other things with the how it changed with being online classes, I had to conduct a lot of the usability testing through like surveys and through like showing pictures of you know different options for the interface and saying like how would you expect this to work and how would you think that like this could be improved. So that was a different method of instead of like physically being able to interact, having to like do it digitally, and also through video chatting was really important to get feedback and see if things were actually working. Hello, everyone. Angie Donna, do you have any questions or comments? Your microphone. I'm gonna oh. Here, I'm gonna unmute you if you want to talk.
Hi, I'm just saying hi. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting my feet wet here.
Yeah, there's a lot in it. So if you have any
I looked through your whole project. It was very interesting, very thorough. I enjoyed seeing that, and I know food does bring people together, and it's an interesting concept.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything that they like want me to talk more about or that they just want to hear more about?
Jason, I have a question. I was wondering what, growing up in Irvine, where there's, quite a diversity, and you grew up with, Korean children and Chinese, did that have an influence on your project in any way?
Definitely. I mean, I think growing up in like a really diverse area has certainly like affected my whole design ethos and like wanting to bring visibility to minorities and and yeah, just like the diversity that we have.
Could you relate it all to, of course, you're talking about immigrants coming into a country. You, of course, traveled and worked and studied abroad. And how did you feel your entrance to those countries is a little different because you're kind of a temporary visitor, but did you get any taste for that? You know, being of another culture and immersing yourself in a foreign country?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the inspiration for like this whole project. And at the beginning of this year, coming back from living 6 months in Greece and like thinking about like what kind of matters to me in terms of choosing the topic for the project, I was kind of reflecting on my experiences talking to people of different cultures and hearing what they think about like Americans and thinking about what they think about their neighboring countries and the perceptions that they have of people who are different from them and people who maybe they have like a history of conflict with their neighboring country. And I really just wanted to understand like why people viewed themselves as different and why people viewed themselves as like separate, um, when we're all like really have the same goals and needs and wants. So through my research, I did kind of come to understand that these separations between us aren't necessarily made up. Like they're not just in our heads or just, it's not just generated out of nothing. It is generated out of the experience that we grow up with and our understanding of our surroundings in the world, that really influences like how we connect to others and how we view others. Um, so I wanted to give people the opportunity to then share what they grew up with and share their experiences, and through that, just create more understanding and deeper connections when before there were barriers because you don't understand someone's humor or you don't understand why they are how they are. So hello to everyone that just popped on here. Yeah, I can definitely give, hi Helen, a short overview of my project, but I would like you guys to, I would like a lot of like more of a conversation, more of a casual talk than just me spewing at you guys. So I'll just give a brief synopsis of my project for people who just joined. Right. So this is what I've been developing for the past 9 months. And so it started with the first, the fall term at Drexel, where it was just even figuring out like what we wanted our project to be about, and then conducting research and starting to develop like what might be a solution for this. And then the second term was really diving into problem solving and getting feedback and validation of our idea and developing out that idea. And then this last term was, well, for me, this last term was continuing to develop the idea up until it's still not done, to be honest. There's so many parts to it that may never be done. But I'll talk about what it is right now. So Four Corners is an immersive restaurant experience with a rotating culture theme. So it's different than a restaurant in that it's almost like an exhibit at some parts. It's almost like a museum, but it's I designed it to make you feel like you're actually there in that culture, because I worked with for this sample. I worked with immigrants from South India to figure out like what are the important aspects of their culture that kind of need to be present in order to like understand it or in order to kind of be there with it. So it's tying in food. Obviously, food is like the entryway into the culture and the thing that's like tying in throughout the whole experience. But it's also diving deeper into that, into the ingredients, the significance of the ingredients in that culture. And through these experiences, it's also provoking conversations and a dialogue of personal and cultural sharing. So I really wanted to design this to give immigrants an opportunity to bring their friends and share who they are and where they come from and what influenced them throughout their like whole childhood or life, or however long they were in their culture, but to give them a platform to just share who they are and to start these conversations. So that was the jumping off point. Does anyone have any questions or comments, or just things they want to know more about or talk about?
Hey Jason, it's Gabby. It's been a while. I hope you're doing well. I just want to say that when I just first saw this, as we've seen in Bourdain, in Andrew Zimmern, food is a really, really good. It's an excellent, rather, sort of avenue into learning about other cultures, and I think you really enhanced that with this over here. There's not a lot of, I don't think that there's a lot of places that are like this. We just see regular food stands in like some sort of court or some sort of market, but it kind of just blends in with everything else, and that there's not really any uniqueness to it. And I think you're bringing out a lot of the uniqueness in this, and it really helps not only, as you say, to bring the cultural barriers, but it also helps in sort of learning about how diverse this world is. And I think you really did a great job with that. I mean, speaking as a Filipino, I hear a lot of people who are friends with Filipinos that they love our food, that they love my food very much. Mm-hmm. So this is not only empowering, but it really brings a lot of people together, and I think you did a good job with that.
Thank you so much.
For you.
I had a question in the chat that says, how did you go about programming and creating the app with all the different components incorporated? So as of now, I've developed like the interface and the experience of like using it and how things are organized and how things look and the visual components, but I haven't programmed anything yet. So far, I've been using like kind of emulation website to allow people to look like they're using it by programming or like putting in hotspots over buttons and stuff. But the app itself is not developed in a programming sense. Hopefully that answers any questions. A question about that. Thank you for that question. I am trying to learn a bit of programming and coding, and I started with some basic HTML front end developing, but I'm not very experienced in coding. I'm a designer, not a computer science major. Okay, there's another MATLAB. But yeah, I was like extremely inspired by my experiences abroad and just seeing the interactions between cultures and how people felt about those that were different from them. Oh, I got a question in the chat that says, what are your plans for the project for the future? So I was talking with Mike Glazer previously. He was in a previous session. He was the head of the product design department, and he was kind of asking me similar questions about this. And I mean, he was saying that this definitely could have potential, and to look at different restaurant trade shows or restaurant trade magazines and see maybe if someone with a little more experience than I could kind of come on board with something like this, because I don't have the experience to actually probably make this a thing. I don't have the business experience, but I do have a design sense and the experience design aspect of it. So while I have been able to build out like, how does the person move through this? What do they get out of each step? How are they? What are they smelling, tasting? What questions are they talking about? I don't necessarily know how to put something like this on. So it'd be interesting to get some other expertise.
Hi, Jason. This is Vijay here. Hi. It's a great concept, very innovative. I'm sure you can collaborate with somebody and take it forward, because if something like this is available, people will be very interested, and it's quite exciting.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You've
Yeah.
done a very good job out of this.
Thank you so much. It'd be really interesting to see like what the future applications for this could be, because it's not like not just it's more than a restaurant, and I would be interesting to see like if this could be implemented either in a restaurant setting or in like a museum setting, and maybe making an experience around that. So I'm not really sure where this could go.
Having it geared towards both might be really fun. Like it would be a very interesting experience to have a restaurant inside a museum that is like you're traveling around the world eating all these different things. Like maybe every week the menu changes to a different location, and that's like a draw for the restaurant but also for the museum too, to like bring in people, to get people to come in and experience cultures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And since this is like a foodie's dream, I can see this place trending on Twitter or whatever, Instagram, and then people being like, oh my God, it's in town. Four Corners is coming to our city. We got to go try everything. And like, you know, it's solving the, you know, like who has good blank food, you know, like I want the real blank food, you know. I think this is really, it solves a lot of foodie problems.
It's true, because like you try to find places that are authentic, but usually it's really difficult to find them online because a lot of our algorithms are driven by like customer views and how many people have gone there and how many people have like rated it. So it's hard to find like actual authentic food unless it's really promoted. So I think this is a great idea. I just want to say you did such a good job combining your love for food and your love for travel. I know we've both talked a lot about both of those things, and like, I'm really proud of you. Good job.
Thank you so much. And yeah, to touch on the idea of like authenticity, I guess, a big part of my idea of like how it would be carried out and how it would be executed is that I do want it to like really be working with the local ethnic community of that culture and like tying in the local grocery stores that you know, are in those neighborhoods, and like having them sponsor it in a way that gets them like advertising and marketing, and like gets them like a base of people that are really interested in that culture and, you know, want to spend money at that places. But it could also be a good way for me to get the resources that I need to put this on, and get like maybe get the ingredients donated by those places, for in exchange for like that platform. And to talk a little bit about like the food and how I would like source the like or get the food. I was thinking that I could work with local restaurants and almost like in a catering style, have them have their food served, so that it is that like real authentic food, but also to like remove some of the constraints on my end of like then having to like hire a team of people that actually would know how to cook it properly, and like needing as much like supplies or materials in order to put this on, because there's already a lot of parts to it. But yeah, I definitely wanted it to be a platform for the actual like local community and people of the featured culture, in order for them to like be sharing their own culture and not me as like an outsider like capitalizing on. Hello to everyone who's
Houdini.
Do you hear Houdini? How do I mute?
Yeah, and on top of that, I really wanted to like contract or hire like chefs or servers that were from that culture, not only to give it like, not only so that I can make sure that what is being cooked or what is being like prepared is like traditional, but also they can share their experiences with the guests throughout the restaurant. And if someone's walking through the marketplace and they don't know anything about like anything that's there, they could the servers or the staff could share their experiences and share how they relate and what their viewpoint is on the different cultural aspects. So,
hey, incredible project. I think this is so cool. I was wondering, I didn't read the whole thing, but how would you go about choosing different like cultures, and would you give priority to cultures that people might not know?
Yeah. So when choosing the cultures, something that's really important to me is not generalizing a culture, which is why for this example I focused on South India and not like India as a whole, because there's so many like sub-regions of India that all have their own specific culture and dishes and diet and ingredients. So it would be really important to make sure that it's like a small, like basically not generalizing the cultures, and making sure that it's representing a small enough size of the subculture. But in terms of how they would be picked, um, my idea is that at the end of the experience, they each guest could fill out like a reflection or like a feedback survey in order to um, give feedback on what worked and like what can be improved or what they liked about it. And inside of that would be like a little poll that presents 4 different like pre-chosen cultures that they could vote on in order to see like, basically I want to give the community a voice and an opportunity to like, for this experience and this restaurant to be what the community like wants or what the community needs. But I definitely would like to give a platform or like a voice for some smaller cultures that aren't necessarily like always talked about, or like that people maybe don't know of. So it would be cool um, to show those and let those like have their moment to shine and show what's unique and different about them.
One idea that comes to mind is if they were real and you had like a social media presence, you could always like increase engagement by asking your followers like, oh, what like specific subcultures are you interested in seeing? And then you could always include that in the like poll thing at the end of the experience, just so you could like get more ideas of like places that you maybe hadn't thought of before.
Definitely. Yeah, like just hearing about what you know, the ones that like maybe aren't in the travel magazines or in the media, um, and representing those. That'd be really cool. See, I have a few chats in here, so. Oh. Have you created an app yet? I currently just have the visual design aspects and the like user experience aspects. I don't have an actual app developed because I'm not an app developer, but I am trying to learn some coding. So I really would like to push this further and, you know, explore developing and coding. So an appetizer. That's fun. Okay, yes. Have you
Congratulations on being done!
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Yay!
Sorry.
Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate the support. I have not contacted any prospective restaurants or clients. That's definitely something to look into in the future, because as I was talking about before, I don't have any experience running a restaurant or exhibition. So it would definitely be necessary to onboard other fields and other expertise. Oh, Raja, are you talking? Because you're muted.
Raja, you're muted.
Maybe she's talking to someone else.
Well, Jason, I would like to say that there's so many things I could sit here and compliment you about, and I just love the creativity behind this and how like complex this is and how deep you really went. But above all, like Helen was saying before, what I like most is this just really embodies you as a person. You know, like Jason, I think of different cultures, food, and bringing people together, and just helping people become more culturally sensitive. So with that being said, I think that there is an incredible bright future for this because it represents who you are, and because of that, I think there's so many directions you can go with this. And I think the overall idea of this, of just keeping people informed and bringing light to some smaller cultures who don't, a lot of people don't know about, I think that is very important in our world. And I'm just really proud of what you did, and I hope you do continue to go further with it down the road.
Thank you. Yeah. It's funny because like in the earlier stages of this project, like during the first term when we were just researching and interviewing people and trying to figure out what even this project would become, like throughout the interviews people kind of kept bringing up food, and I kind of didn't want to go with like an obvious choice and something that I was, I guess, comfortable with. So I really was like, no, I'll keep going. I don't want to like hone in on food yet. Like I just want to make sure that I'm doing it because it's like actually impactful, or because it's like an actual reason, over just because I want to do it and because like that's what interests me. But people kept like pointing me in that direction. So I'm glad I chose it because I found that it was like a solution, rather than because it was just something that interested me, which is an interesting note. But yeah, it would be interesting to see where this could end up, or how this could be real, because often in product design we really like create solutions and figure out all the little tiny details, but then really never go anywhere with it. And like, there's never any like actual application for it. But it seems like a lot of people see potential in this. So I don't even know where to start though.
You know what I just realized, Jason? That this project is pretty similar to the school that I went to in Bangkok growing up. Every year we had something called International Day, and the best part of it was this food expo, where parents and family would bring in like a signature dish of their nationality. And the school that I went to, we had around about 60 different nationalities. So if you can imagine like a hall with like 60 different tables filled with 60 different kinds of food, I think, as you were just saying before, like trying to figure out how to integrate this into reality, I think this could be an extremely interesting educational tool that you could implement in the classroom pretty early on. That's just like what clicked into my mind looking at this project again, because I know we've reviewed this a couple times, and I'm surprised that it didn't come to my attention earlier, but yeah, that's just something that I thought about, implementing kind of this like cross-cultural dining experience pretty early on in the education experience.
Yeah, certainly. It really goes hand in hand with education, and one like direct application that I could see it is like within the culture cards or the conversation cards. Like this is something that could be in a print version and can definitely be used at like in education and in classrooms, and also like at conventions or at like, you know, business meetings or anything to that effect, in order to just like get people talking and get people to like get to know each other. So
Absolutely. Even at like a casual dinner with your friends, I think it's almost like Cards Against Humanity, except a more sensible and educational version.
yeah, definitely.
Jason, I want to go off of that idea as well, because that was one of the first thoughts I had too. Because actually at Drexel in Urban Eatery, I don't know if it still exists, but there used to be a station in there where they would like, I don't know if it was like weekly, but they would try to showcase a different culture, and they would have like little like fun fact sheets about that. And so this is kind of what I was thinking, like maybe putting that into place more like within dining halls across schools and universities, and maybe even trying to start with Drexel, you know, like it might not be the most exciting starting point, but it could still be a starting point, you know, to spread across to different universities, because that's the perfect place to do it, really. And I mean, Drexel as such an international school, like that could be a good start for this.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Maggie. I remember that was actually my favorite station. Are you talking about the one right in the back?
Yep, all the way in the back.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That was good.
The only edible food in the entire food court. Not gonna lie.
I can also envision some like cool YouTube videos following different participants through the experience and like capturing different conversations that they have, so that whoever views the video, it can be like educational about like other cultures, and it's sort of like advertising inadvertently for your product, which is the experience. And the cards, I guess. People could buy the cards online to the videos.
It's definitely like super multimedia, multi-platform, like physical space, virtual, community, and print cards. Like I've, I guess, been you know, really focused on the dining like experience and how the application ties into the physical space and stuff. But it'd be interesting to like step back from that and see how to kind of apply the same principles or idea into other forms as well that are maybe a little more accessible.
Piggybacking off of that thought, you could have, I've noticed a lot of chefs that I follow on Instagram doing like more live streams of them like making quick recipes, making these like garnishes and full dishes, and like releasing recipes through live where people can follow along and like watch them cook it as well. And I think like using that as a template to showcase different chefs from around the world, from different nationalities, who want to showcase dishes that like speak to them on that level with your little company, I think would be a really interesting way to show your content as well.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for all the comments, guys. Let's see. Yeah, to talk a little bit about the makeup of like the cards. So there's several different like styles of and there'd be question cards, questions about food, and also questions about culture and growing up, as well as culture facts about whatever the represented culture is. So there could potentially be like several different decks with like updates or like almost like an expansion pack, but each expansion pack is just the new culture that's represented in the experience itself. So, but yeah, it is. Okay, it's 11 p.m.
All right, I think it's time for you to celebrate, buddy.
Go pour yourself a drink.
Nice work, man. It's been a blessing to see you just come so far in the last 4 years. You know, all the way from day one when you first visited Drexel to like 4.5 years later now. And I see your mom is here as well. Hello. So it really feels like we've come full circle here.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Me too.
Thank you, guys.
Well done, Jason.
Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Take the time to celebrate this moment, and yeah, I wish you the best of luck. Let's keep in touch.
Yeah.
Come hang out with us in Chicago. Bye.